Hey, I'm Stephanie, and welcome to Books and Bubbly. This is the playlist where I drink something bubbly while talking about a book that I get all bubbly about. And today I'm really excited to be talking about The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, warning, there are going to be spoilers in this review. If you don't want spoilers, please check out my What I Read in January video, where I do not spoil anything from this book. So I got this as an add-on to one of my Book of the Month boxes. God, I think it might even have been in like 2023. This has been sitting on my to-be-read shelf for a while, as I had seen really great reviews of it, but just couldn't apparently find the time to squeeze this in. But luckily for me, my book club picked it as our January read. So let's go ahead and see what this promised. Aging and reclusive Hollywood movie icon Evelyn Hugo is finally ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life. But when she chooses unknown magazine reporter Monique Grant for the job, no one is more astounded than Monique herself. Why her? Why now? Monique is not exactly on top of the world. Her husband has left her, and her professional life is going nowhere. Regardless of why Evelyn has selected her to write her biography, Monique is determined to use this opportunity to jumpstart her career. Summoned to Evelyn's luxurious Manhattan apartment, Monique listens in fascination as Evelyn tells her story. From making her way to Los Angeles in the 1950s, to her decision to leave show business in the 80s, and, of course, the seven husbands along the way, Evelyn unspools a tale of ruthless ambition, unexpected friendship, and a great forbidden love. Monique begins to feel a very real connection to the legendary star. But as Evelyn's story nears its conclusion, it becomes clear that her life intersects with Monique's own in a tragic and irreversible way. Written with Reid's signature talent for creating complex, likable characters, this is a mesmerizing journey through the splendor of old Hollywood into the harsh realities of the present day as two women struggle with what it means and what it costs to face the truth. So I'm going to say this, I actually went into this book pretty blind after it was announced that it was our book club pick. I did not read the jacket copy. I knew that this book was popular. It was about a Hollywood icon and her life, but I didn't review that jacket copy before starting. And now I am so glad that I didn't, as I honestly think it would have tipped me off about what Evelyn's secret about Monique was going to be. Because we know Evelyn sought out Monique to write this memoir that she's probably going to make millions from, basically because Evelyn did something to Monique that she's going to end up hating Evelyn for. I really expected like an adoption plot twist, but it didn't end up being that. But had I read that it was tragic and irreversible, I think I would have been much more on alert for tragedy and clocked what it was early, and it probably would have ruined like the twist and surprise. So I'm really glad that I went in blind. I totally missed the clues that were being set up because they were set up very well. But then when it hit that much harder because I truly didn't see it coming because I wasn't on alert for it. But we're going to get back to that as it's revealed near the end of the book. So let's talk about what the rest of the book has. So the book starts off with Monique, who is a writer, and again, she's been specifically requested to write a piece for her magazine about Evelyn Hugo. This is a big deal, and Monique's boss is actually kind of pissy that it has to be Monique. So off Monique goes to interview Evelyn. I'm going to be honest and say this up front, that Monique's parts were the weakest part of this book. Like, she is used to frame the story and help set the stage for why Evelyn is telling her story. But we don't really get to know her that well. And she does have an arc as she learns to be, honestly, a bit more like Evelyn and ask for what she deserves and be honest about what would make her happy. But as a character, I still felt Monique was kind of weak. And I also didn't really care when we went back to her plot points. Like, her story is there, but I don't think it had the same impact as it did when we were reading, like, Evelyn's story about her life. There's nothing wrong with Monique, but it's almost because we just don't get to spend enough time with her that her story doesn't hold as much weight. So it felt like either we should have spent more time with Monique up front before like getting into this, or built out her chapters a little bit more. Just let me know her a little bit better. Otherwise, she came across as kind of weak. But I also think like if that's the weakest part of the story, not really a problem. Because at the end of the day, this is really Evelyn's story. She's telling Monique the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and wants Monique to write her biography. And she tells her story through her relationships and scandals, as people have a perception of Evelyn, but they don't actually know Evelyn. Her 7 husbands did, and so did her wife, Celia. So that is the big bombshell that Evelyn wants to share with the world. She's timing her telling this biography to Monique as she doesn't really have that much longer to live, and everyone else who mattered in her story has already passed. It's her story, and it's her time to share it. So we've got little sexpot and Hollywood siren, Evelyn Hugo, and she tells everyone that she's bisexual, and that the love of her life was not one of her 7 husbands. It was a woman named Celia. And the story covers their love and how they had to hide it, and the various means that they used to hide it, such as Evelyn marrying her gay best friend, Harry, so she could be with Celia, while Celia married Harry's partner, John. But before Harry being her beard, Evelyn was married a few times before, and she explains how each marriage benefited Evelyn, or what she got from those marriages. Like, her first husband was basically her ticket from New York to Los Angeles, and she divorced him pretty quickly. Sounds like he did okay. He got remarried and then had a big family. But she really wanted to be a star. Evelyn is very ruthless and will do whatever it takes to get what she wants. So bye-bye, husband number 1. Her second husband was a very popular actor, Don, and Evelyn actually really did love Don. But their relationship was kind of terrible because he was hurting her and trying to control her. He was extremely jealous and did not like the idea that his wife was going to be more popular and well-loved than he was. Evelyn does fight back, and finally enough is enough, and decides to leave him around the same time that she's becoming, friends with Celia. And then the rumors reach Evelyn's ears that, Celia isn't just a thespian. So another husband of hers, while she's going through this new friendship with Celia, because at first Evelyn is not aware of her own feelings towards women, so she's still continuing to be with men. So her third husband is a fellow actor named Rex, who for the most part was actually a pretty good guy. I kind of liked their relationship. But their relationship is purely one of convenience and one to cement their Hollywood status. It's basically a fake marriage, and Evelyn refused to be intimate with him. They made movies together, acted like the perfect couple, but behind closed doors, they pretty much lived separate lives. It was all a publicity stunt. And again, their relationship was actually kind of fun, even though it wasn't really real. They loved each other, but not in the way that you think a stereotypical partnership or partners would love each other. So the biggest relationship outside of Celia was Evelyn's relationship with Harry, I've already mentioned. Harry was a producer and basically her best friend. She loved Harry. He loved her. But they were each other's beards because they were never in love with each other. They got married so they could basically double date their real partners. So again, Evelyn was with Celia and Harry was with Celia's husband, John. Now this part was very interesting because it really made me wonder how often this was done in old Hollywood. There were plenty of actors who were thought to be gay, but it was not safe for them to be out. Though, I guess, sadly, our reality 70 years later isn't really that much better. But it was such a perfect cover-up. Harry and Evelyn did love each other as friends, and they didn't really have to work that hard to fake it for the media. because they respected each other, they loved each other, they were best friends. They just weren't together. Though they did get together a few times, as they both realized they wanted a child. They wanted to be family. Evelyn and Harry conceive a child, and they have a daughter that they end up naming Connor, sometimes calling her Connie. And they're amazing co-parents and love Connor to pieces. They have a happy family unit, and the arrangement really was working out for everyone. It was the perfect cover-up. They all got to be with the person they actually loved, until the cover-up kind of stopped working. Now, I'm going to say here that Celia is not perfect. Both Evelyn and Celia hold some blame for why their relationship has its ups and downs, and why they had to take basically Ross and Rachel style breaks. Evelyn is well aware that Celia would lash out when she was angry and say extremely hurtful things, which was very immature of Celia, but it also felt like a very realistic flaw to her to have, and she continues to struggle with this throughout the book. So it made it very realistic. Celia is furious with the world for not accepting her. She's definitely a dreamer, can be a little naive at times, and she even talks about how she wants to leave the fame behind and just live with Evelyn. But Evelyn is a lot more practical and knows that the world they live in would not let them be happy, would not leave them alone. That, and Evelyn does love the fame. She loves this life that she gets to lead. She has had to make it on her own, where Celia comes from money, so it's very easy for Celia to be like, oh no, we can just give it all up because I'll be fine. Whereas if something were to happen and they were to split up, Evelyn would not be fine. She needs this cover to protect herself and to protect her happiness. She also seems to really love the power that she has over people and loves that people want her. She needs to be adored and desired and validated through other people. She and Celia tend to kind of have a hot and cold relationship over the years, and again, it's due to the time that they live in. Evelyn does what she does to protect Celia, but knowing that it hurts them both. Celia also has to work at accepting that Evelyn is bi. She hates knowing that Evelyn has been with men and that Evelyn is attracted to men. She wants men. She is interested in perusing relationships with men, just as she is with Celia. And even during one of their breaks, Evelyn does get remarried to a man that she really desires. Now also, this husband, Max, can get bent. So he was a French director who claimed to be in love with her for years, and she quickly realizes that he's in love with the idea of her, not really her. He's basically the Joker from The Dark Knight when he said, I'm like a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do if I caught one. Max really liked the chase. He liked the dream and idea of having Evelyn, but doesn't actually know what to do now that she's allowed him to actually have her, to have a relationship with her. It's not as good as the fantasy. There's another husband in there that Evelyn manipulates, as she's basically just using him to cause a stir to serve as a distraction. But he was a tool and doesn't really deserve any airtime. I'm not even going to name him. So as the book moves on, the first big tragedy of Evelyn's life happens when Harry dies unexpectedly. Celia has been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and Evelyn tries convincing Harry to come to Spain with her, Connor, and Celia. Harry doesn't want to. He doesn't want to leave LA, and he has fallen in love with someone. As John, Celia's former husband, passed away from a heart attack years prior, Harry has been heartbroken ever since. He lost the love of his life, and he's finally starting to find someone that he can see a real relationship with. It's not a good time for him to leave the States just to help Evelyn and make her happy. So Evelyn is picking Harry up so they can head back to New York after they were at I think an award show, probably the Oscars or something. They're going to go back to New York so they can be with their daughter, and she wants to continue trying to convince him that this is the right move. And then she sees his car basically wrapped around a tree. And he's not alone. she refuses to have him outed like this because their marriage lasted like 15 years. So it was a very good cover for him as well, because there had been talk of like, what's up with Harry? So again, they both benefited from this relationship, but she does not want this truth to come out and potentially destroy him should he survive, because he's still alive when she finds him. So she gets her driver, bribes him basically to take them to the hospital, and tells him, like, you did not see anything, like, you know, whatever happened did not happen. Call me. I will make whatever you want to happen come true. And the guy does end up cashing in on it. But Harry is still showing signs of life. His passenger is not. So this is where she makes one of her horrendous decisions, and she makes the choice to move the passenger's body so it looks like he was driving and probably, you know, just drank too much and crashed into the tree, and unfortunately, no one was around to save him. Harry does end up ultimately passing in the hospital a few hours later, and again, Evelyn just pays to have what really happened get covered up. So the driver of the car gets bribed off with becoming a famous actor, and a lot of the people at the hospital are basically told, like, he died of a stroke. He died of a stroke. He did not die of something else. So then, after losing Harry, who again, like, is a love of her life, just not a romantic love of her life, she moves on with Celia, which brings us to her last husband. And Evelyn's last husband is also a beard, but he's a beard so that Evelyn would legally be allowed to obtain Celia's assets after she passed, as the last husband is Celia's brother, Robert. He knew who his sister was and wanted to make sure she was happy and safe and got to live this great life with Evelyn before she leaves the world. So he decides to marry Evelyn so she could be with Celia without people questioning it, because it's just her and Robert taking care of his sister. And then that way, when Celia does pass, Evelyn had a rightful claim as the sister-in-law, so she could keep all the things of Celia's, and Robert would know that this is the right thing to do because my sister was in love with her. She was in love with my sister. Makes complete sense that they should be together. They get to live in Spain as Celia slowly declines, and then one night in bed, they decide to get married, and they exchange vows. Sadly, Celia does not live much longer than that, and Evelyn is barely holding it together at Celia's funeral. And this is where I started breaking down and crying. Like, losing Harry was really sad, but watching her lose Celia really gutted me. And then this book just continued to be like, haha, let me punch you in the stomach while you're already feeling down. Because not long after that, Connor, her daughter, finds out that she has breast cancer, and she also passes. She gets buried next to her father, and Evelyn is alone. She has lost everyone she has ever loved. And that love is not going to die with her. She is going to tell her story and share that love with the world. She's going to fully be herself and finally be real with people. Again, yeah, this is where I was just sobbing in bed as I was reading it, because Celia passes away in Evelyn's arms. And then she, like, talks about being at the hospital with Connor and how unfair it is that she has to watch her daughter go before her. She has to bury her own daughter. It broke me. Oh my God, it was so tough reading that. And it's so interesting, as Evelyn has done some pretty bad things and made some extremely unethical choices. But she's human. And she made a lot of those choices out of love. So then it's time for the reveal. It's time to find out why Evelyn sought out Monique, and time to find out why Monique will ultimately hate Evelyn and probably not be too sorry to see her go, since, again, she is also kind of on her way out. I don't think we ever actually find out, like, what she has, if she's been diagnosed with something, but she's pretty much not going to be living much longer. So again, this is where I'm really glad that I did not read the jacket copy right before starting this. Otherwise, I think I probably would have, again, latched on to what it is. So earlier in the book, we find out that Monique's father passed away while she was a child. He lost his life while he drove intoxicated, and so Monique was raised by her mother. Monique has made peace with this. So I'm just going to say, it wasn't him driving the car. So we find out that the dad was the passenger in Harry's car when he wrapped it around the tree when he passed away. Harry was the one driving, and then Evelyn staged it so Monique's father looked like he was driving and just passed away on his own. So we find out that, again, James, who's Monique's father, was living kind of a double life because he was still married to Monique's mother at the time, but he was also in love with Harry. So then Evelyn gives Monique a letter that Harry had on his person when he was taken to the hospital. The letter is from her father to Harry and says that while he doesn't love his wife in the same way that he loves Harry, he cannot leave his family. His love for his family is stronger than his love for Harry. He also realizes that he loves his wife in a different way, and he will not say goodbye to his daughter. He loves them too much and will choose to lose Harry to keep them. Monique now knows the truth about her father's death, but now has to decide if she tells her mom about James's affair. Does she reveal that side that James kept hidden? What is the right choice here? Which decision is the right one out of love for her own mother? And only Monique can decide, and she has to live with her choice, just as Evelyn has done her entire life. Honestly, I think this book was just so interesting as Evelyn knows she has made mistakes and wishes she could give a lot of it up, including her money and fame, very much like Celia. But it's also, again, very easy for her to say that as she has the privilege of money and fame. It's easy for her to say that she doesn't really want it as she already spent the majority of her life with it. But it still underpins the idea that fame, ambition, and wealth can come at the cost of what we really want or what we really need or what true happiness looks like for us. I really just loved all the forms of love that are expressed in this book. We've got romantic love, platonic love, familial love, and even the love of something that you probably shouldn't want. I really have come to find that for romances to work for me, they need a lot of time. These relationships felt very authentic as they took years. It wasn't like they'd been together for 2 weeks and are declaring their undying love and know that they're perfect for each other. Because they weren't perfect for each other. They still had a lot of growing to do. They had a lot of growing individually that they had to do, plus growing together and learning how to make their relationship work. It felt very authentic. In the end, I think this story is just so human. It's beautiful, but it is also so heartbreaking at times. Evelyn has lived this extremely impressive life, but it doesn't seem to have that much meaning to her anymore. Like most things in her life, she wants to be in charge. She wants to make the call to say cut on her own life. This book really exceeded my expectations, and the hype for it I felt was very spot on. It was a compelling read, and I loved what a force of nature Evelyn was. The title may reference her husbands, but it's because they are the husbands of Evelyn Hugo. She is an icon. They were lucky to be married to her, and this is her story. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. The reason it didn't get 5 stars were just some of the biggest detractors were the fact that the pacing sometimes felt off and really slow. And again, I just wasn't sure what to do with Monique at times. There were also times that I found myself having to reread things, but I also did read this late at night, so the fault could entirely lie with me and just my stupid brain not being able to keep up. I do think TGR writes beautifully, and some of her writing really gave me pause and really made me think. Like some of the quotes that I really loved from this is, "There are people who see a beautiful flower and rush over to pick it. If I want things to change, I have to change how I do things. It felt like water in the desert. In the end, I loved what a badass Evelyn was, and I loved reading about her journey to find love and accept herself as well. It's not just about telling people who she really is. She had to learn to embrace her true self in order to share it with the world first. I do think that representation was well done in this, but as a straight white woman, that's not exactly my call to make. But I do like the fact that we have a variety of biracial characters, LGBTQIA+ characters, and to me, they never came across as stereotypes. Every character in this felt like a very real person, and a person of their generation, as good and bad as that can be. They were not ashamed of who they were ashamed of society for not being willing to understand and accept them, which again, unfortunately, is something we're still going through. Oof. In the end, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm looking forward to checking out more from TJR. If you have any recs of what I should read next from her, please leave those in the comments. Or if you have any recs for other books that are kind of like this, like contemporary historical fiction with like an amazing lead protagonist, I would love to check that out. So please feel free to share whatever recs you have. Otherwise, thanks for joining me for Books and Bubbly.